Hello YouTube, we're back here in the wood shop today. Hope you enjoyed the wood shop tour, and a lot of nice comments, a lot of nice responses to it. Here's the first project that we had talked about. This is my old porch swing. I had built this back, I'm going to say the late 1980s, and this was actually built out of old roof truss material, minus the armrest. This was replaced at one point before everything else rotted away. So we're going to basically reproduce this. The story goes back years ago. A good friend of mine had this swing hanging in his backyard, and I loved this thing. And he said that a guy that had one hand had built this, and I basically copied the design, and I had this for many, many years. So the first step I did is I went through and I measured all my pieces. So I wrote all the numbers down, so we're not playing around here. We start getting stuff cut to length. So I know roughly what sizes I need these pieces to be. Really, it only needs 3 large pieces, the long rails. If you wanted to build this, you could go up to your local lumber supply and get 2x4s, which will work good. I happen to have some old poplar, had sawed on the old Meadows mill years and years ago, and if you look at this, you'd probably say it's nothing more than firewood. But between the big joiner here and a power saw, and give us about 15 minutes, you'll be surprised what we'll turn this into. So let's get started by getting some rough blank material processed, and then we'll go ahead and start cutting pieces. So let's get set up with the joiner here, and I'll be with you in a second. Okay, we got the joiner set up with the feeder on it. And I'm going to get the height of the feeder set, because I'm set for 4/4. So we want to do is loosen these knobs up here and get this thing to go up. You don't want too much tension, but you want just enough tension that you're not going to have the board flying at you. They do have a pretty good suspension system on them that they will take up for a lot of play. So we will start up the dust system for it and turn the joiner on. It don't have to be 1.5 inches thick. If we end up at 1.25 inches, the poplar is much stronger than pine framing lumber would be. So as long as they're all consistent when we're done. So we'll fire up the dust system here and we'll get rolling. Cleaned it up pretty nicely. Okay, now that everything's to the same thickness, and I'm not going to bore everybody with planing every single piece down on this video, just trying to give you some basics of what's going on here. We have to straight edge this stuff now, and it's going to be back to the big joiner because these lengths are very long. If we had stuff like this, I would resort to the little Powermatic 8-inch joiner. So we'll go ahead and get the feeder removed, and we'll go ahead and get these straight edged, and we'll be with you in a second. Okay, I went ahead and removed the fence, or the feeder, and moved the fence a little bit closer so there's very little knife exposed. When most people think of a joiner, they think of this as just a edge machine, and it does both. It's why they call it a joiner. It makes wood so it can be joined together, and it flattens it and it straight edges it. The longer the table, the better the machine as far as long lengths. So I also lowered the infeed table down a little bit, so we're going to be taking more of an aggressive cut because we're trying to straight edge. So we're going to go ahead and just run this one board just to show you how it's done, and then we'll be back with you after this, and we'll go ahead and rip everything down to the proper width. So let's get this edged off. Is perfectly straight now, so took a few passes, but sometimes you got to work them down slowly. So we'll go ahead and get the other boards processed, and we'll be with you in a minute. Okay, now it's off to the Powermatic 66 table saw. We're going to be setting this fence at 3.5 inches, and we're going to make it as close as we can to a dimensional 2x4 because this original swing was built off of nothing more than dimensional lumber, so we're trying to keep as close to the original. And also, it makes a super strong swing. This thing will hold 3 very, very big size adults, and it don't have a problem. So, and it's very comfortable. It's got contour to the seats and contours to the back. So we'll go ahead and get these things ripped, and we'll be ready to start on the assembly, cutting some pieces. Okay, we're at the radial saw here, and what I'm going to do is square up one end, and I have a stop down the other end. I'll show you that after this we're done cutting here. But yeah, square up one end, send it down to the stop, and you're going to repeat this as many times as you have to. So. And what's nice about this is that we have this trolley here with this little hairline indicator, and there's a stick down roller here. So wherever you set this at and lock it down, you could make 100 cuts. They're all going to be the same. So if you have equipment and you maintain all your tolerances on it, your life is a lot easier in your shop. If you want to pull a tape measure and pencil out every time, so be it. But making stop blocks or a good stop system is well worth it. And make sure your tools are always cut and square and plumb at all times, and your projects will go together much easier. So we'll go over to the workbench now, and we're going to start shaping up some of this stuff. So we'll be with you in a second. Okay, now that we got all of our blanks cut, we're going to pay attention to these scoops on the back. In order to make the bottom frame, we're going to have to cut 3 of these scoops out, and they have a slight taper. I believe it's like a 5-degree back cut on it in order to make the slats actually stand up flat. When you get on the top one here, since that top piece leans backwards, that's actually a 90-degree cut. So we'll have to lay out the scoops for the top and the bottom, and we'll show you how to do that over here at the workbench. So we're going to take some measurements and we're going to transfer them onto these. We'll pick out the best piece for the actual front edge, which is going to have the radius on it where your leg sits, so you're not with a nice sharp edge on it. You want it nice and rounded over. So we'll go ahead and get things laid out here, and I'll show you some little tricks on how I do a quick little layout with a piece of laminate just to bend a nice radius. So we'll be with you in a second. Okay, we're going to start the layout here on these little radiuses, and there'll be 3 scoops on the bottom and the top. So I'm going to make some templates so we can reuse this many times over instead of laying them out individually. So what I've found in the past is either a piece of laminate, such as Formica. I also have some thin aluminum stock that bends fairly nice. You could use 1/8" masonite. Here's with the aluminum. It might try to pop on me here a little bit, so we'll just set it in place. So you set it in place here, and got to make sure that this is absolutely centered up here, which it is right there. And just take your pencil and trace this around. And for what we're doing, this will work just fine. And you can see, so now we got our radius on here, and we're going to take it over to the bandsaw. We'll cut this out, and this will become the template that we can lay down and trace multiple swings. We'll just keep this because I'm sure the Eddie Horvath will want one of these swings. So we'll lay out one for the bottom, and we'll lay out one for the top because they are both different. So we'll go ahead over to the bandsaw here and cut these out. Okay, we got these both traced out here. So we're at the bandsaw. We're just going to make a nice cut here, and you can just stay right on the line. We're not going to sand these ones down, so take your time. And outdoor furniture, we're not being too critical. And that'll be the bottom slat, and this will be the top. If you only planned on making one, I would still recommend making a template because everything will be consistent now. Because that's a lot of layout. And I hope one of the things I drive home with my woodworking show is templates, templates, templates. If you make jigs and templates, your life will be so much easier. So we'll go ahead and take these over to the work pieces, and we'll go ahead and lay everything out, and we'll get ready to make the cuts on the actual material. Be with you in a second. All right, now that we got the templates made here, we're going to go ahead and lay out the top and the bottom at the same time. And we're going to carry our center lines through so that when this is all done, the center of the swing will be the same and the distance will be the same on the end. So if you want to build one, this is 82 inches is the bottom piece that the chains will hang on, and the top piece on the back of the swing will be 70.5. So it's 35.25 to center, 41 on center, and then when you're coming in from the end, we're going 18 inches left and right, and project this back onto the top piece, and that'll set you up properly. So we'll start with the bottom, and all we're going to do is line up our, I had center lines, I think I cut them off. So pretty close there. And all we're going to do is just trace this out on all three. And then we'll grab the top one and we'll do the same thing. And remember, the top one, this is just a 90-degree cut. The bottom one, we have to put a bit of a back cut on it. And I'm not positive what it was. It's been a long time since I built a swing. And I really do miss my swing. That's why I'm doing this. So again, this will be 90 degrees, and then we're going to get to the saber saw. We'll set that at a bit of an angle, and we'll go ahead and get that cut to about, I'm going to say 5 degrees, but we'll determine that here in a couple seconds. That's about the easiest tool to use. And this could actually be cut with a bandsaw, but it's so big and cumbersome, you're almost better off with the saber saw. So we'll go ahead and get the saw, we'll go ahead and get these cut out, and then we'll be with you in a second. Okay, we got the Bosch saber saw here. I like the barrel grips. These are really nice saws, easy to control. They cut fairly accurate if you get a good sharp blade on here. But we're just going to follow this line around, and we'll take it over to the drum sander here eventually, but we'll go ahead and get this roughed out. Okay, we'll sweeten that up a little bit at the sander. So we'll go ahead and cut the rest of these, and we'll have the sander ready to go here, and we'll go ahead and true this up a little bit. Okay, with the saw angled, you can see the table's tilted, and what this will do is this will allow them slats to line up with the top. So you want to take this a little bit slower because this will be a finished cut. We're not going to sand this later on, so you just got to take your time. Okay, you can see the angle on that, and the slats will lean back to catch the back, and that gives you your nice backrest. So it's about a 10-degree angle. You have to sort of play with it. So we'll go ahead and get the rest of these cut, and then we'll sand the other part, and we'll be ready to start cutting the bottom pieces. We're going to take the oscillating spindle sander, and we're going to bring these right into the lines, and just take your time and slowly work it down. Okay, once you get it to the line, get all the saw marks out of it, that's good enough. What do is on the ends of these, this is where the chains will actually hold these swings up. And we want to ease this edge a little bit so that you don't have no sharp corners out there. Nothing to catch you with and hurt you with. So all we're going to do is trace this little template we made here, and we're going to cut that off with the saber saw and just fine tune it with the sander. And then at that point we'll be ready to start assembling one of these base frames, and we got a couple more pieces to make yet, so we'll go ahead and get these cut, and we'll go ahead and get them sanded up, and we'll start making the cross members. So we'll be with you here in a couple minutes. Okay, our next step here is we're going to make the two end pieces on the swing, and this will receive the back and the front. The front doesn't get received into the side piece the full distance because underneath it here is going to be a stiffener, so we have to allow for that. So we're going to go 1 3/4 in and the full 3.5 inch in, and making sure that this is the same thickness, which we got to find a piece of scrap around here. It's the same thickness as the front of the seat here, and then we will trace that on. So we'll go our 3.5, and we'll go our 1 3/4, and you'll need 2 of these. And we will remove, I think this might be the same thickness, yeah. We will remove this material at the table saw and the bandsaw, so we'll be with you in 1 second. All right, I'm here at the table saw, and what I did is we raised the blade to the full thickness of the piece of wood that we're going to be letting the shoulder into, so it's just a little bit strong there. We want to lower it down till it don't grab no teeth. Now we're at the proper height. And I like to cut the shoulders out on the table saw. You could do this on the bandsaw, but sometimes the bandsaw don't cut perfect. I always leave a piece of 1 inch block of wood at the table saw. Very dangerous to run something against the fence where it may bind and throw back at you. So if you have a 1 inch block, the math is easy to do. And also, I prefer to run a full 1/8 inch kerf. I don't like the narrow kerf. Easy to do the math with this. So we got 1 3/4. So if I set this saw at 2 5/8, because I got my 1 inch, that'll bring it in right exactly. And then we do the 3.5, we'll go to 4 3/8, and that'll give us our cut. And then when I come through the fence, see, I'd leave the block behind me and I'd have nothing to bind into. So we're going to go ahead and make these shoulder cuts. Then we'll readjust for our 3.5, which will be 4 3/8. We'll double check it, and there it is. All right, now we'll cut the other part out of it, and what we'll do is we'll take a measurement from here down. I got to grab my tape. If you also noticed, I did not bring that back through the saw. That's a good way to have it bind and throw at you. So just clear the saw, get it out of the way, and that'll do you good there. So we'll go ahead and get a measurement here. So the remainder is roughly 2 1/16. So if we set that at Oh, maybe a little bit heavier than that. Sometimes it comes between numbers. Then what we're going to do is we're going to just cut in just enough to get a flat spot established, and we'll finish it off at the bandsaw. This will give us the best cut. I'm going to crank the blade up a little bit more. You want to stop so you're not underneath. Okay, we'll get to the bandsaw and finish these cuts off, and we'll have the two end pieces completed. So I'll be with you in a second. Okay, we're at the bandsaw here. A little bit about bandsaw safety. Always run your guide as close as you can to your work without touching it. And the reason being, if this blade should ever break on you, it's going to come out of there, and you don't want to be in its path. So you got a better chance of sending that blade back down inside that saw. So we're going to go ahead and cut these little blocks out of here. And you can see the advantage of you get a real nice clean cut. I know there's going to be the person out there that you could have done this a lot faster, but that's not what we're about here. You build one of these swings, you'll have it for decades if you take care of it. Okay. Ready to take this over to the workbench, and we'll start assembling some stuff here. All right, we're getting close to assembly here. Now's the time to soften up the edges a little bit, and I have a router with just a simple round over bit. We're going to go around the top and bottom of these pieces, and on the front edge I got another router here set up with a little bit heavier radius. And I had found out throughout the last swing that I built, this front edge where your legs hang over, a bigger radius here is much more comfortable. So we're going to do that on this one. I said I'll never let that happen again, so now we can correct it on the second swing. So we'll go ahead and route around this, and we'll come around the front strictly with that larger bit. So. Okay, now we'll switch to the bigger router. Always make sure that your router is in the off position before you plug it in, because that is a real good time when you plug this in and it's on. All right, we're just going to set this with eyeball, so come in sort of the center of the bit and start to cut. That'll be so much more comfortable All right, we're going to finish routing them. Now we're going to get out the random orbital sander. We're going to give it a quick sanding, and we'll start assembly here in a minute. All right, the first thing we're going to assemble here, there's a front stiffener rail that goes underneath the front piece that you see me routing on the porch swing here. This just keeps it a little bit stronger. What I like to do before, this is going to be just screwed together, but what I like to do is get a little brad gun with some 2-inch brads, hold everything where you need it to be, and I like to tack it offside where the screw won't be. That holds it together nicely while we try to place the screw, because otherwise this is going to be moving on you. So all we're going to do is we're putting one screw in front, and we're going to pre-drill it. And I like to use these outdoor deck screws. They'll never rot out. I do have stainless steel. Stainless steel tends to be a little bit soft, and I've had problems in the past that you get them almost all the way in and then something goes wrong with the head on it, and then you're really in bad shape. But we're going to connect the front with these 3-inch. There you go. Pull it down tight. We'll repeat the same process on the other side, and then we'll be ready to install the front seat board here. So we'll go ahead and do the other side, and we'll be with you in a second. All right, we're going to take a little break on the swing here, and I am with the Eddie Horvath.
Good morning. Good morning.
Now, this is a Saturday morning, and normally we would be up there sawing. This is the microphone, by the way. That's why we're holding this here. Testing. Why aren't we at the sawmill today, Ed?
Because it's 18 degrees, and we just don't feel like getting cold today.
Yeah, no, the high today is not going to, are we going to hit 30 today?
No, 28, I think.
Yeah, so 28 for a high. This will be the first official day that we lost since, since we started the building.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is the first day we won't be up there. So we're going to continue on in the wood shop here. Eddie stopped by for a little visit, and he's got to pick up some planking up at the mill, and we're thinking about maybe next weekend, if the weather's nice enough, to go down to the old sawmill and give you guys some video of the Meadows mill we're trying to sell, and hopefully someone sees how nice it works. And we got a couple of logs of saw for you down there. You want some fascia boards?
Fascia boards, yeah, we'll cut that.
We'll cut them on the old Meadows and give her a chance to run. But yeah, we're just hanging out here, nice and warm. It's about 70 degrees in here, and outside it is brutal. But we will be talking to you in a little bit here.
Yeah, watch this video, though. This swing has a little bit of effort into it. But when you sit in it, you don't need any cushions. This is probably the most comfortable swing I've ever sat in.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah, you will really enjoy this swing. It's going to take a little bit of time to build, but when you're done, you'll have this thing for decades. And once you build one, there's going to be people wanting these things. So, alrighty, we'll get back to the swing here. So, we'll see you in a minute. All right, now the next step is the front board of the swing. So, what we're going to do is we're going to add a little bit of glue. And anytime you can put glue on anything, it's well worth it, because it will make this thing just that much stronger. You don't need crazy amounts of glue, but, and also I put a little witness line on the end of this so I know where it goes back. Otherwise you fight that. And what we're going to do is we're just going to tack this down with a couple brads, and we're going to fasten everything from underneath. So we're just going to, not going to go crazy with it, just enough to hold it in place. I'm not a big fan of seeing exposed fasteners where possible. All right, now we will turn this upside down. And I will drill the pilot hole this thing wants to come loose on me. We're going to drill the pilot hole as deep as we can get it. And we will take a 2.5 inch screw, and send it deep, and it doesn't come out through the top, and we'll just continue this down here, and then we will start on the back half. Okay, I installed the back piece temporarily with a clamp so that we keep the spacing correct on here. We're going to install this back slat first. And then after this is installed, we will come back and take this out temporarily, because when we put the actual backrest up, this will be in the way of getting a fastener in it. So the way we're going to do this is just get the same distance. And we'll do the same process as we did on the front. We're just going to make a little line. And we'll put a little bit of glue just on the ends here. There we go. And again, tack it together with a couple brads. And we will attach it with some screws from the underside. So we'll go ahead and get this attached, and we'll be back with you in a second. Okay. Our next step is to make the cross members that are going to hold the seat slats, and they have a curve to them. I'm going to salvage the original piece to lay this out, and I did put an X on one side of the board so that we know at what position that's at. So we'll go ahead and get one traced. We'll cut this out at the bandsaw, then we will trace the rest of them, so that everything remains the same. As you can see, this swing did not have long for this world. And then we have to lay out for where these will get notched. They'll get notched in to the front and back rail, but we're only going to notch them in 3/4 inch deep, because we have to allow the distance for the thickness of the seat slats, and you'll see that when that time comes up. But we're going to do the same notch as we did on the front, 1 3/4 back, and then the remainder on the back here. It's almost the same, but it's just a little bit off. So we'll go ahead and do the same type of notch that we did on the two ends, and we'll go ahead and cut that curve out, and we should be ready to install these, and then we'll start on the actual back, the backrest, and get all that installed onto the frame. So we'll be with you in a minute. Okay, our next step is the backrest. And down here you can see that we have an angle of some sort, and the simplest thing I had found to use is these little adjustable T-bevels. So kind of hard to do this with one hand here. So all you're going to do basically is just to line that up, and we'll take that over to the table saw, and we'll make a couple test cuts and a couple pieces of scrap. All right, we're going to cut these out on the bandsaw. We're going to leave the line, and we will have two different methods I will show you how to get this tuned up when you're done cutting it. But I always leave a line. Method is you can use just a plain old sander, and we'll just bring it right down to the line. claw marks out of it. Okay, that'll work. Now I'll show you the second method to tune this up. All right, the other way to tune these up, and all I mean by tuning them up is get them down to the exact line. And the good tool to use is the smaller joiner. And all we're going to do is just make a pass. And that's perfect. So we'll do the other couple with the joiner. Okay, we're ready for assembly. All right, I'll show you the layout on this. What we want to do is we want to come in so that the first one, let me grab one of these here. The first one will come in on the inside of that side brace, and there is a reason for this. We're going to get screws from underneath of this thing, and if you put it directly over top of this, there's no way to fasten it unless you did that before assembly, and it just makes things very difficult. So we're going to set that one in to there, and I laid everything out on here because what we're going to have to do is we're going to go ahead and attach these to the back rail before we attach it to the actual swing, and it just makes things a lot easier because that way the distance is right where it needs to be. And you'll see here in a second. And the other thing I was showing you, the taper on this back, when you get to where this is going to be in the middle here, if you're sitting on the swing, and that would actually stick out to the point where if you were sitting here, that would almost interfere with your back. So it gets it out of your way, and it just makes it that much more comfortable. So let's go ahead and get started and assemble this back frame. And we're going to do the same method we've done before. We're going to use the brad nail gun in order to tack it in place. So I'll just show you how we do one here. And then we'll just move on down the line. And I like to hold these in just a little bit from the edge, so we'll just use that template, and that's nothing more than 1/4 inch loo on. And we're going to get it right on the line there. And we're going to send the brad in. And we'll repeat the process the whole way down. And then we'll go ahead and get a screw in there. And this will be a very solid connection because this holds pretty much the whole back assembly of this swing together. And I don't mind seeing an exposed fastener on the top, but I just don't want to see them on the bottom sides here. So we'll go ahead and we'll go ahead and finish assembling this, and then we'll go ahead and attach it to the swing bottom. Be there in a minute. Okay, after wrestling with this for about 5 minutes, a couple quick clamps, I got it tacked in or setting in place. So we're going to go ahead and fasten this from underneath. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to send a brad nail in, and we're going to go down the other side here and slide this over where it needs to be. And we're going to tack it. And we'll go ahead and pre-drill. And we'll send a screw up in there. Turn upside down. We're going to put in these bottom pieces that literally are going to carry the seat slatting. Gives you the contour. Very comfortable swing, like Eddie Horvath has said. So we're going to do, and the reason we put the back on, you can see it now, is them screws never could have got in there. So what we're going to do is we're going to put these all into place. And I marked everything front. It makes sense to just keep track of where your parts are, where they're going to go, because it'll save you some grief later on. And now it's just like a big puzzle. And if you're going to use 2x4s, regular conventional framing lumber, that'll save you all kinds of time. I mean, I just wanted to use some stuff from the sawmill for this video, so you can see we actually do use our wood. Okay. Now what we're going to do is we're going to pre-drill it. We're going to run fasteners in from the bottom, and then the final piece, I believe it's still over here. This is the bottom, this is the back stretcher, the same as the front. So this will sit in here, and this will tie everything together. We'll be fastening in here too, and fastening from the bottom up again. And this bottom frame is very strong. So we're going to go ahead and just run some screws in. I don't want to bore you with all that, but now you get the idea how this all goes together. And the next step will be to give everything a final light sanding. And we got armrests to make and all the slatting. So once I get this all fastened here, I'll be back with you. And I think we're going to call this video part 1 for the porch swing. And then we'll do a second part whenever we go make the slats and put the finish on it and put the hardware on it. So I'm hoping that everybody is enjoying this video so far. It's kind of tough for me to be in here by myself filming and doing everything. So hopefully this is turning out okay. So I'll be with you in a minute. All right, this is our first part of the video, and this is what we got accomplished now. We got the whole entire base of the swing ready to go here, and the next video will be porch swing part 2, of course, and we will be going over how to make all the back slats, the seating slats, the armrest, and we'll go ahead and put a outdoor finish on it, and I'll have all the hardware hopefully for the chain, how to rig that up, because it gets hung up by 2 chains. And I did my last one with stainless steel. I think I'm going to do the same thing. But yeah, so we got to do all the back slats and the seat slats and the armrest, and that'll conclude this swing. So I hope everybody enjoyed this video. I know I sure did. A little bit of a challenge here in the shop by myself to keep moving the camera around, and I really respect a lot of people that do these YouTube videos. I know a lot of them are probably by themselves, if you're lucky enough to have somebody to have a camera. So alrighty, I am going to get out of here for today, and I'm going to start doing the porch swing part 2. So I hope you enjoyed again, and I will be talking to you. Bye-bye.